All right, welcome to our next lesson. So, in the last two lessons, we covered geography, introduction to Rome, the major theme of the unit, rise and fall, rise, domination, and fall of empires, especially when you're talking about the Roman Empire. And we talked about the mythological beginnings and just the few, a lot of things that we do where we copycat the Romans and we don't even need to. That's kind of what we cover in the last two lessons at least. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about now more of the realistic beginnings, the understanding of who the Romans are and where they came from, not from the mythological sense, but just definitely what we know, you could say, at least the simple idea. I'm not going to go way into this, but just give you the basics. So as it shows right here, just right off the bat, you need to understand that the Romans belong to an ethnic group of people called Latins that are from basically central Italy. Now, this map, I really like this map, but the one thing it doesn't show is Latium. So just really quickly, I can't get this to work. Just 1 second here. If I'm going to show you where Latium is, it's basically like this area right here, not roughly that area right there. Not huge, but a good area, and there was actually a ton of people there. One of the reasons why is a very fertile area. You could grow a lot of food, and like I've said many times before, more food equals more people. So that was a major advantage of that area, was just how much food is available. More food, again, more people. So when it comes to the beginnings of Rome, though, like again, I gave you the mythological beginnings last time, just how with Romulus and his Remus and his brother and killing his brother, the rape of the Sabine women and things like that. What is true and what's not true out of that, what's understood and what's not understood out of that. Anyways, I'm not going to go into that too much, but one of the major things that is said about Rome and the foundation of Rome is it did have a different beginning. It wasn't just this place that started as like, okay, it's a really little homestead and just kind of grew out of that. That Romulus, again, being seen as most likely a real figure in history, opened up Rome to be this place where anybody could become. If you're not accepted in another area, if you're not accepted by something else, then come to Rome and get a new life. Start over. Feel like you can have a new beginning. And the reason why I'm telling you this right now is like that's a huge thing for the United States. That is something that we definitely wanted to copy and to continue copy. That the United States, for all of our failings and things like that from the past, one of its main foundational core aspects to our society, it's a place where anybody can come to get a fresh new beginning and hopefully feel accepted. And if not necessarily accepted, just be able to have a life where you can be happy, achieve the American dream type thing. And when you look at the foundation of Rome, there's a lot of similarities there. Now, were there problems? Yeah. When you open that up, they tended to get a lot of miscreants there. Some people, there are reasons why they're not accepted in other cities or other civilizations. They cause some commotions, let's put it that way. But over time, it's able to coalesce as this just unique city and adapting a unique culture, and especially with this idea of this whole new beginnings and kind of individual independence type of feel. Like we are different from everybody else, and we are special because of that. Again, as Americans, we love that thought process. Again, one of those reasons why we look at Rome as like a roadmap, a blueprint for ourselves. So that being said, that's Latium. They belong to this ethnic group of people called Latins. But there are some major people around them they're heavily influenced by. First and foremost, the Etruscans. The Etruscans, again, not when you see all the green on there for the Etruscans, that's not like an area where it's all, it's not like an empire. It's not like a nation state. It's not like they're all united. That's just an area where the ethnic group of people called Etruscans that they more or less get along with each other, sometimes don't. They have all these different city-states themselves and cities that, well, it's more like kind of an understood trade union almost, where they just enrich themselves off of trade, and Rome was part of that. In fact, Rome is ruled by Etruscan kings for about 150 years. After Romulus dies, they have a few others, and then Etruscans actually step in and take over Rome for a while. I'll come back to that in a little bit. But because of this, Etruscan culture influences Rome a lot. But not in the idea that the Romans copy everything the Etruscans do, although they get a lot from them. There's also a lot of things the Etruscans did where the Romans despised. Not going to go into this too much, but this is where, like, you know, we look at, say, like the Greeks and Romans, say, that's awesome, we'll take that from you, but we're not going to take that from you. The Romans did that with the Etruscans. Like, one thing I'll just mention, one of the things the Romans really did not like about the Etruscans was, how do I put this? The Etruscans were, I'm trying to say this in the, the best PG light I can. They were not prude. There we go. The Etruscans did not have a very prude culture, and the Etruscans actually looked down the Romans as being very prude, and the Romans looked at the Etruscans like, you know, you're not prude enough. You guys do some things that, you know, just aren't moral. So, anyways, that's the Etruscans for you. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. Oh, I should have had that up already. Sorry. But yeah, Rome gains most of their traditions and cultures from the Etruscans, but again, they definitely see themselves as distinct from the Etruscans. Another group of people that heavily influenced the Romans, not as much in the beginning, but most definitely after they conquer them, after the Romans actually conquer the Greeks, or what are the Greeks? And we talked about in the Greek unit how you had this age of colonization with them where they came over. Like that city of Syracuse even mentioned down there in Sicily. We talked about them during the Peloponnesian War. Now, that culture is also very influential into Roman culture, but at the same time, the Romans looked at the Greeks like they did the Etruscans, like there's things we like about you, but we're not going to copy these things about you as well. And some of those things they chose not to copy, I did not cover in the Greek unit either, because, well, it gets really into this realm of don't really know if I want to talk about that in high school. So, anyways. But just those are the two major influential groups, other kind of cultures and ethnic groups on the Romans, and they're just beginning. So, oh, and I didn't get, dang it, I should have said this in the last video, but the beginning of Rome, what is seen as the beginning of Rome, if you want to have the timestamp, is about 753 BC. The reason why this is important is, remember, when we talked about the Greeks come out of their Dark Age at about 800 BC. So if Rome is founded about 753 BC, that means that Rome and Greece have roughly the same beginnings in history. It's not like the Greeks were there first and the Romans came second. It just means the Greeks came out and the Greeks and Romans came around about the same time, but the Greeks just surged forward, I guess you could say, civilization-wise, first, ended up influencing the Romans, but technically they're around at the same time. The Romans are just kind of like the late bloomers. So, again, I hope that's explaining that all right for you, to get that timestamp and understand where we're at the moment, and at least in the historical timeline. Now, next thing you need to know. This is one of those things that we actually don't like about the Romans as much, that in their social class system, they divided people up into two groups, patricians and plebeians. Patricians were seen as like the highborn, the aristocracy, if you remember that word from our unit on ancient Greece, and then the plebeians, which was basically just everyone else. Now, this was not necessarily a socio-economic thing, which means that, or economic thing, which means the idea of like, well, all the patricians were the really rich people, and the plebeians were really poor people. You know, in the very beginning, it might have seemed like that a little bit, because the patrician families are the established families of Rome. These are all the families that are there when Rome was founded. You know, Romulus' family is a patrician family along with all of his buddies and their Sabine wives. But then you have all the other people that I talked about earlier in this video that come in, you know, they're looking for a new place to stay, you know, it's kind of new beginnings, but they're definitely viewed as, well, you're not the first people here, you're the late comers. You know, you're not as good as we are type thing, and there's definitely a difference between me and you. You know, I helped establish this area, you just moved in. You know, we are the patricians, you are the plebeians. You know, I just, you know, this might make sense for, you know, here in Lehi, Utah, just to make a little bit of a correlation here. This isn't a perfect correlation, but we see this a little bit. Lehi has a lot of established families, families that have been here for well over 100 years. You know, they're the ones that really kind of arguably made Lehi what it was, you could say. And now that Lehi is exploding, you know, with all the tech companies coming in, the housing developments going up, there's a lot of other people coming in, you know, and it's been interesting to see the changes here just in Lehi, Utah, from, you could say, more of its its agrarian roots, with a lot of the farming and ranching, now to more of kind of like this suburban city feel to it that it's starting to get. And you could say there's this idea of like, well, the people that have always been here versus the people that have just moved in. That isn't to say it's like the people who have always been here saying that they're so much better than the people that are coming there, but that the only reason I'm telling this right now is to give this idea that, this happens throughout history. Like, the people over there, then people come in, and there's this distinctness of like, well, I'm here, and so I hold a different place in the society versus those of you that just don't get it as well as I do because I've been here for longer. So, and in this case with the Romans, you have the patricians and the plebeians. Going back to the economic thing, I cut myself off there, I apologize, but you could be a very poor patrician and still know that you were better than a very rich plebeian. Again, this is something we do not like in American society, is this idea of rigid social classes, that you're born into it, that there's nothing you can do to change it. We like this idea of social mobility, that, through your hard work and choices, you can achieve American dream and essentially live a life that you want to have. And if you make poor choices, then, you essentially lower yourself in society. We call that social mobility. Rome does not have that, and that is something that we look at Rome with and say, no, we would rather not have that. Let's try to stay away from that as best as we possibly can. Anyways, but you do need to know that patrician and plebeian, and to this day, by the way, to call someone a plebe, like, that's still an insult today. Like one of those things we got from the Romans, and we don't have to, but we do. We call basically people that are beneath me a plebe or pleb. I see it in sitcoms all the time. I see it in literature. I don't hear you guys telling it to each other, but I hear it in a lot of places. So, you dang pleb. So, anyways, there's a social classes Rome for you. That leads us into I would say, the most important part of understanding Rome. Remember, the theme of the unit is the rise, domination, and fall of empires. So in these first couple lessons, I'm going to be outlining what was it that allowed Rome to do so dang well. And if you remember, one of the major concepts in world history that is huge is this idea of civilizations that basically, like, the people within a society and a civilization that agree to and live by a certain set of morals and values will always do so much better and will be less likely to fall. This is the case for Rome. Now, what I'm about to put up here doesn't mean that this is what's going to make everybody rich or like powerful and have an awesome empire. This is just one of those things that led into making Rome powerful. And it had everything to do with their family structure. Sorry, I need to turn this off. I don't know if I can. There we go. So, right off the bat, this isn't the part that necessarily makes Rome a powerful society, but to understand the way they think, you need to know this. So if you haven't heard the term patriarchal society before, patriarchal society is what we refer to a male-dominated society, which, by the way, most societies throughout human history have been mostly male-dominated. It doesn't mean that women have always been in the background, but they definitely haven't been in the foreground, and mostly usually politics and things like that. So, although in many societies they have held a lot of sway and influence. So, but to understand the Roman family structure, what I'm trying to do right now is just give you what the Roman family structure is like. Is every family had what's called a paterfamilium. When I say family, I'm not talking about mom and dad, son and daughter. The way usually we think of that, what we call the nuclear family. Mother, father, son, daughter type thing. But in a Roman family, it's basically everybody with the same last name is a family. That is your nuclear family. So a family isn't like, 4, 5, 10 people in a nuclear family, for a larger nuclear family today. A traditional family, whatever you want to call that. It can be in the hundreds, into the thousands, into the tens of thousands. Everybody with the last name, Lucii, Julii, Brudii, the Claudii. Anyways, I can go through a lot of the names as they just pop into my head, but these are like like when we talk about a Roman family, it's more like, the better word to use it for is like a Roman clan, tribe, however you want to put that. And each of these clans, these families, would choose a paterfamilia, one man, not necessarily the oldest man, but usually the most capable, as what's called a paterfamilia, the one who runs the family. And that paterfamilia had responsibility for everything that happened, and even held the idea of life and death over people within the family. So if you do something to disgrace the family, the paterfamilia could have you executed. He had the full authority to do that. The paterfamilia is always the one that would sign off on like who can get married to who and things like that. Just anything to do with the family, he was the head of it. If that is making you start to think of like the Italian mob or something like that, well, there's some correlations there. Anyways, if you have no idea what I just referenced, you have no clue what's going on there, just forget about it. Hopefully you just understand what I'm talking about with the paterfamilias. So now, what is the woman's role in this one? Here's the funny thing. One of the worst offenses, one of the things you could do to get yourself killed in a Roman family, in at least the early times of Rome, was disrespect your mother. Because it was viewed that the woman's main responsibility is that there was to stay home and teach the children values. Well, kind of like the homemaker type thing. The Romans viewed that as really the most important thing in their society, because they saw this whole idea of like, all right, we need to make sure the next generation does just as good, if not better, than the previous generation to keep Rome going, to defend us against our enemies, to make sure that we can all basically, again, agree to and live by the same morals. So who's in charge of those morals and values? Mom is. Mom is in charge of that. So when you say to teach the children values, it's not just teaching, say, the boys how to be those good next leaders of Rome and soldiers and things like that. It's also to teach your daughters how to then also become good teachers and mothers as well, to continue these Roman traditions and not be, you could say, like, infected by other societies around you, which they viewed would denigrate their society. So this was viewed as a huge thing to the Romans, and so therefore the role of a mother was considered the most important one, if it didn't hold the most power. I mean, again, a paterfamilia held the most power, you could say. Now, so again, I just explained that. I should have had that up already. I apologize. So the next question now is what is basically what mothers would teach their sons and their daughters? What are these morals and values that they would go into? Now, there's lots of them, and I'm really just hinging on some of the major ones I'm going to be showing you here, but it's crucial to understand these, to understand why Rome becomes so powerful, why they do so well in the beginning, why they were able to win war after war after war, even when they would lose tons of battles. So, first off, discipline. Just straight up discipline. We still hear that one today. It was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You don't need a mom to tell you that. Everybody needs to have discipline. But think about it. If you have a disciplined daughter, then you're going to have those disciplined mothers. If you have a disciplined son, then you're going to have that son that is more disciplined in basically all the things they do, whether it's out on the farm or if it's in the field of battle. Very important to have right off the bat. And if you don't go along with that discipline, well, you'll be disciplined by the paterfamilia, even if it comes down to being kicked out of the family, ostracized, or maybe even put to death. The next one, self-sacrifice. The term self-sacrifice, very key, not just sacrifice, meaning that they try to raise their sons and their daughters into people that would choose to want to sacrifice for, you could say, the greater good, or I shouldn't use the term greater good, I should say for the family. And then family first, republic second. So self-sacrifice, you are not the most important person in the world. Yes, you're important, but life will be so much better if you're willing to do what is needed, kind of do your duty and things like that. Anyway, well, where I'm about to explain, I should bring up the third one. If you have that discipline, that sense of self-sacrifice, then you are much more able to be devoted to your family republic. If you are disciplined and if you have that self-sacrifice, then when the call to arms comes, and you have those morals and values ingrained into you, and you've made them become you, then you're going to want to volunteer for the army. You're going to want to defend your family. You're going to want to defend your republic. You're going to want to defend your friends and things like that. And this worked incredibly well. I mean, just amazingly well for the first couple hundred years. Not the entire time of Rome, but for the first couple hundred years of Rome, where they would get so many people in the army that would do it because they felt like it was their duty. It was their it was their duty, their patriotic duty, through the sense of self-sacrifice and discipline that their mothers raised them with. And so even when you'd have entire armies of Rome get wiped out, they would just raise another one because, well, they had tons of food, so they had tons of people. They always had more people to draw off of to build just that another army. And that's one of the things that's viewed at Rome, where like there's a lot of times where they should have just been knocked out. They're just kind of like a no-name society, like so many others in history that we don't even know about because they got taken out by their more powerful and larger neighbors. But because of this, Rome was able to stay, well, they're always able to punch back, that permanent underdog. So, until they become the top dog, but again, underdog. Now, the last thing, of course, is what we usually think of, at least today, when we think of like morals and values, we think of things like being honest and integritous, being trustworthy, start listing down the things of like the Scout Oath, if you know the Scout Oath and law, if you know those at all. But just being a good person with those good morals and values that we even would think of today. Again, that's what mothers would be in charge of teaching their kids. So hopefully just looking at this helps you understand the foundation that the Romans built for themselves that allowed them to rise to power. Even though, yes, they'd get kicked around and knocked around a bit here and there, but they were always able to come back because of that. Like at the core, it was that. Did they have problems? Did they have societal differences and things like that? Yes. I'm not getting into that. But what brought them together in most respects was what I'm showing on this board. And it's interesting to look at because that's very different from, say, what we said made Athens powerful, what made Sparta powerful, or what made the Qin dynasty or the Han dynasty of China powerful. Everybody has their distinct idea of like, well, this is what made us who we are. Well, this is in the beginning what made Rome, Rome. So, sorry. Again, I keep forgetting to bring up the little things, but again, there you go. But this is the end of this lesson. It's already gone a little bit longer than I meant to, but I view this, at least that last part I talked about with the Roman family life, as one of the most important things to talk about. If you're going to understand how Rome was able to do so well, here you go. And as I get into especially the wars later on that they get into and their expansion and the problems they have, hopefully you can think back to this and say, okay, I can see how they got through this where most other societies would not have. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next lesson.